Okay, so I've got the this bag of hardware, the feet and buffers. I'm just going to open that up. I'll put them on the table here so we can access them, hopefully without letting them fall. Okay, so the second bag of screws here that I need for this step, and we'll put those out. And we have to open that sub bag. Don't need all these screws in this particular shot, but I need some of them. So the first step is to take the feet. So you've got the loom positioned so that it's upside down. These are the 4 positions where the little feet are going to go, and I'm going to tap them in. And when you're tapping these in, then you're going to feel or hear a difference in sound as they get to the bottom. Hear that? That's solid, that's in. Okay, so you notice that I left the packaging in place here. It's just easier to move the loom around upside down, right side up, while this all stays together as opposed to things flopping around. Next I'm going to take the buffers. That's these little rubber feet and one of the small, I think they're 17mm screws. And we've got 4 spots, one here, small pre-drilled holes here, here, and then 2 over here. And we'll put those, screw them into place. So now the loom can stand up on its side on the buffers, and you're not going to scratch the wood any further. So we'll reposition and go to the next step. Okay, so I've got the 2 35mm screws and one of the handles. These are the warp beam handles, cloth beam handles. So we're just going to screw them into place. I like to push it all the way through, and then it's easy to find the hole that it goes into. And take your screwdriver, or if you have a electric drill, you can do that. Makes the wrist turning easier. And there you go. One of the changes we made to the for this chain is we changed the position of the pawl actually just slightly, and so it just has a little bit nicer action here. There we go. And next now we can take the packaging off. So I'm just going to slice this away. Okay, now we're going to unfold the loom and install the shelves. So when you're unfolding the loom, you have to lift the loom a little bit. I'll show you why. If I've got the loom not lifted a little bit, you see right over here, these rollers hit the table. So rather than putting that kind of pressure on things, lift the loom slightly and lift it up. And now we're going to take the small M6 star knobs, and you're going to insert it right here, and this locks the loom in place in an upright position. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'll go ahead and do that right now. Now, one thing that's very important to point out here is that when you are trying to fold the loom, some people with the Jane 8 shaft would try to leave these star knobs on. So let me take it all the way off. And I want to just leave it on so that they don't have to take it all the way off because they're afraid of losing it. Problem with this is that as you fold and unfold a few times, you're going to develop a real deep groove here, and you're going to make marks that don't need to be there. So my suggestion is remove it completely when folding, because you also need to use these to lock the loom folded later on. Okay, so we're going to fold the loom, and I'm just going to take this star knob off on the other side, and we'll take this one off over here. As soon as you do, it's going to want to start moving. One thing you'd be careful about is you don't want to get the beater caught on the plastic catches here. So just let the loom fold like it wants to, and then just gently start letting the beater go in with it, and then it'll fall nicely in place. Otherwise, if you push the beater all the way back right from the beginning, you're going to get the bar here caught in behind these clips, and then it won't fold. All right, so the point of this was to show you what you do with these star knobs when the loom is folded, and that is you put them right here, and this locks your loom in place. Put this one in on the other side, but it locks the loom in place so you can lift it up and move it, and this is with a warp on or without, and nothing is going to go flying or opening up. It's just locked into place, so that's a really handy feature. And I'm going to unfold this again, and we're going to get back to installing the shelves that we were initially talking about. Yeah, notice I didn't lift the front, and it went a little bit rougher. So you can do it, and what I was doing is I was lifting the top here, pushing upwards, so it wasn't as much pressure on those wheels in the bottom here. But ideally, when you're unfolding, lift the front of the loom slightly to ease the pressure on the bottom wheels. Okay, so we're attaching the shelf here, and you'll have a series of screw holes along here. Use the inside two to secure the front shelf, which is in this case, for 8 shafts. When you have 16 shafts, we're going to use some of these other holes, and that's described in the 16 shaft video. So it's simply taking the toggle shelf and connecting it here with this screw and this screw, and that's described in the instructions as to which screw, so you're going to get that right. So for the 8 shaft Jane, you are only going to have 16 shaft bars, 16 shaft ends, and you'll be putting together 8 shafts instead of the 16. So you can take them apart. And cut this open. And I'll do a couple here to show you how this works, and then we can do the rest off camera, and we'll come back and show the heddles. So really it's just a press in, and we're doing one on each side. You're just doing one side of them, and so put them all together like that. Okay, so I've taken the liberties of preparing some of the heddle bunches the way I'd like to use them, and I just want to explain that, what I mean by that. All textile heddles are one continuous long string with a loop at the top, and we keep these ties in them to keep them organized, otherwise you would have a nice mess on your hands. When they're all on the shafts, if the loops are still connected, then they're harder to slide along the shaft and move them around. So I always cut the ends like I've done here and with all the other bundles here. So what you do is, first of all, get a sharp pair of scissors. Doing that with dull scissors is more difficult. You just slide them in a loop and snip. And you just kind of go around and snip these. And if you miss one or two, you can always do this while it's on the heddles are on the harness bars. But the one thing that I've heard people do accidentally is cut the elastic cords that are used for the loom when you're doing it on the loom. So that's the challenge. If you do it on the loom, you got to be very careful. So preparing in advance doing this is the easiest. So we take the scissors off. Next step is putting the heddles on the harness bars. So there's a reason why we left one end off, and that is so we can slip the harness bar over the end, and so you put one in the top and one in the bottom. And so let me further explain that. If we take another bundle of heddles, you've got a clear loop here where those ties have gone. Actually, I got this one mixed up a bit. Just got to make sure that the ties are very clear and distinct, and you don't have any heddle in between them. And that's where your harness bar is going to go, right where my fingers are. Okay, and so you separate that, slide them over the harness bar just like I've done. And now you can take the ties off. If you want more heddles, then you'll need to buy them, or maybe you wanted colored heddles, then you'll need to have them ordered with your loom. So what I do is you take the ties off first, like this, just undoing the twist tie. All four. And just make sure you don't let them slide off, because otherwise you're going to want something like a heddle helper to reorganize all your heddles that have fallen on the floor. There we go. So the heddles are all loose here. Now what I'm going to do is take another harness bar, and I'm going to lift this up and slide it in underneath. And you're just making sure that you get through all of the heddles so that you're not missing any. And there's one loose that's sitting there. There we go. You slide that through like this. And then with them all overlapping like this, now you can just split them apart slightly and look at the bundle. Yeah, I've got this one a little bit too many on the one side. That's about right. If you want to count them out specifically, go ahead. Now is a great way to just count them through. So you put 50 on one side, 50 on the other. If you're like me, I'll ballpark it. If I really need more, I'll add another time. But to each your own. When you're done with this point, then we're going to take one and simply remove it and take a harness end. And now see, we've got the end on this side. We need to make sure that we put the similar end of the next harness end on the top like that, because you need, in the end, you're going to put your shaft cords through these holes, so they both need to be facing up. If you have one up and one down, not going to work. Okay, so you go through and that process for all of the harnesses, and here I'm going to put the harness ends on this one, and you can spread the heddles out a bit, or you can do that later. That's your choice. It doesn't really matter whether you do it now or later. Some will argue that it's easier to do it while sitting in your hand than waiting and doing it on the loom. That's totally up to you. Okay, now we're putting the elastic on the harnesses. So we've got two bundles. You probably have an extra one. We usually put 9 in a bundle so that you have an extra. So you're probably going to end up with 2 extra, but that's okay. Sometimes they, over time, they'll lose their elasticity. We sell them in bundles of 9 actually in a package that we label as 8. But these elastics are what's used to pull the harness back down into its rest position, and the tighter the elastic is, the harder it'll pull down. It's also the harder to lift the harness, but when I say harder, it's not that hard, but all the same. I'll get off that point. Take your little elastic and put it from the outside to the inside of this hole, and then you're just going to tie a knot. And in the instruction manual, you'll see a picture with a fork used to try to tighten this. My hands are strong enough to tighten that up sufficiently, but if you don't have the strength in your fingers, then you can use a fork to give it a little. Now you're going to pull it in so that the knot is right inside the groove of the harness end. And then we're going to come around the other side here, and we're going to put it through the hole here as well, and do the same thing. Tie a little knot. And tighten it. Now what happens if you're doing this and you have the harness on the loom, and a harness is not coming back to its rest position well, or if the cords are falling off the rollers, usually it's because the elastic is not tight enough. So then you would pull this out, make another knot so that it comes here, for example, just basically shortening this elastic cord. Okay.